Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Around the Outside, the American Formula One podcast. We had a crazy time down under this weekend, and to make this show what it is, I'm going to start that over. 3, 2, 1.
Thunder down under.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Around the Outside, the American Formula One podcast. We went down under this weekend, and to help talk about the calamity that was caused during this weekend, please allow me to introduce your co-host, Mike DuPont. Mike, what's up, man?
What's going on, Ian? What's going on, race fans? Just keeping an extra close eye on my hound this weekend. He bit off his freaking toenail.
How? That sucks.
I don't know. I think he was trying to groom himself and just went a little too far. Yeah. No bleeding, fortunately, but just keeping a bandage and keeping an eye out on it. But besides that, business as usual. Good old Formula One races at 1 a.m.
I like it. I'm fine with it. I'm up anyways at that time of night, so I think it was pretty cool to do something other than work, and you get to watch a Formula One race. However, I know it's not the most popular time for everybody involved, except for our Australian fans. Just want to give the two of you a shout out and say thank you for loving Formula One. And I don't know how you guys do a full season with the time difference.
Oh my God, for real. I understand Australia being at 1 a.m. What I cannot comprehend is how Las Vegas is at 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time later on in the year. Like, it's a freaking race in America. Don't you want Americans watching it? Isn't that one of the draws?
Wait, I didn't know
Las
that.
Vegas is at 1 a.m. for Eastern Standard Time.
What are they doing?
I have no. What are they doing? Like, most of I understand people in Vegas, they're still up and everything. Maybe they don't want a lot of. I don't understand. I just don't understand why it's at 1 a.m. in Las Vegas. It should be at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. or something like that if you want a night race spectacle in Nevada. But yeah, that's the other 1 a.m. race for us. I looked it up.
Did the promoters get mistaken with Las Vegas not being the city that doesn't sleep? Because that's New York City. Maybe they think they're both one and the same. And they're like, everybody's going to be up. We can have this at 1 a.m. Eastern time.
I don't get it. It's an American race that's like, Australia time.
That's wild, dude. That's absolutely wild.
But I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to talk about good old Vegas later on in the year. We got a lot to get into today, my friend.
We do. We are Albert Park this weekend, Mike. I classify this as a half street circuit, half park circuit. It's like Canada.
Yeah.
To me, that's what I think about when I think of Albert Park.
Very similar.
They still not used to, was it last year? They did track changes on it. They modified.
There used to be a chicane last year. They took out the chicane, which I kind of like that chicane, honestly, because it was a little bit of a skill check. It was an overtaking zone, and they removed that skill check and overtaking zone in favor of just more. But at the same breath, them changing that opened up turn 9 to be an overtaking zone more than it was in the past. But I kind of miss the chicane. How do you feel about it?
I always freak out when we were doing onboards for FP1. They always... I'm so used to just seeing people brake at where that chicane used to be, that when they're gunning it straight down, I'm in my head looking at the TV saying, all right, brake. No, you need to brake now. Come on now. Don't forget about it. Yeah. So no, I like
where are the meter boards?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
You're going to crash. Oh, no, it's a straight now. I think it was a good decision, though. It made because it gave 4 DRS zones this year, and that really made the difference for the whole weekend, because this was some of the closest fighting I think that we've seen in a very long time. And it makes me believe that this new generation of vehicle is definitely working now, and we're getting what was promised to us. I don't think we're 100% there yet, given the delta between the top teams in the midfield, which is a consistent theme throughout Formula One history. And with the new wind tunnel regulations, yada, yada, I believe that gap will be closed, but it's not going to be this year. Maybe 2025, we'll start seeing that starting to come to fruition. But if you look at the performance of backfield teams, you believe that the regulations are doing their job. And when I talk about backfield teams, I'm just going to get right into practice, because they want to start taking time away from practice. That was the first paddock talk of this weekend. The drivers and I think a few team principals do not believe that they need 3 hours for practice, and they could just do with one session. Mike, what I found funny about this though was how many cars went off the track during FP1 and FP2.
A lot. And I think it's good to see cars that are not so much on rails, teams having to work harder for the setup, drivers having to work harder to keep the car on the track. I think it makes for more entertaining and exciting racing. And I think Sunday was, the proof was in the pudding. We had cars all over the place, in the walls, red flags, safety cars. It certainly made the race very long, but exciting in the same breath. When it comes to the sessions, it's fine if you want to get rid of a practice session, but you can't get rid of that time slot. I'm fine with more sprint races. Would you be open to more sprint races?
I think that's dumb. I'm not a fan of the sprint races, and I'm not a fan of taking away practices either. I thought it was just ironic that the people who were talking about wanting to have less practice looked like they needed more practice on the track because of the sloppy driving that was happening.
Right.
It was the irony.
I think the counterpoint to, being an F1 purist and keeping everything the same, you'd give the teams at the top less time to make their car perfect. There's more of a chance that a team farther back down the grid can get the setup nailed in and move farther up or closer to the top for qualifying, and as a result of that, race as well. Maybe there's some kind of middle ground. I'm fine with them keeping it the way it is, to be completely honest with you.
I don't see an issue.
And some sprint, there's really no issue at all, honestly. But if they were to change it, I'd be fine with more sprint races. I'd be fine with some kind of hybrid where we have, all right, let's say not sprint racing. What if we do a first session is practice, second session is half practice, the last half is a timed heat where you get points for finishing, basically like quali, but a 30-minute quali. Put in your best time.
With like a 3-second reduction from what that would be interesting. I could
like actually some kind of shakeup, But
right.
I think they should just probably keep it the way it is. But if they want to test or change something, more sprint races or some kind of timed session with points being rewarded. You would have to, if you're going to get rid of practice, you need to have something where points are rewarded, in my opinion.
That's the only option. And I hate the fact. It's funny that you say that, because my least favorite thing about the sprint race is how it has world championship points. I think that should be relegated strictly to the race. I think a cash prize for the team would be incentive during this cost cap era. I would be okay with that.
That may just allow the big teams to just dominate harder.
Good. Wind tunnel time. Something like that, you get 5%. The thing that I
hate about the sprints, though, is the race order. having that dictate the race order, having it nullify qualifying makes no sense to me.
I just love qualifying for what it is, and it gets you such a build up for the race that it feels like you're kind of they're like edging you along until you get to the race during a sprint weekend, and I just kind of want the full nut with the whole weekend.
Yeah, right. I'm fine with points for sprints, but I don't like how it dictates the race order. When I'm the fastest in Q1, Q2, Q3, but Logan Sargent rams me going into turn 1, and now I'm starting in the back. Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me for a race that isn't even the actual race.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, no, crazy cars going off the track. Checo and P3 all over the place. At pretty much every single turn going off.
His performance in FP3 was horrible. He could not. There was an issue with the car flat out because he would brake in his normal braking zones. And granted, the track was a little slippery, whatever. I think that it wasn't him, though. It was 100% the car, and they were telling him that they were going to fix it. Mike, I smell conspiracy theory here, and I'm smelling a little sabotage in the car.
Tinfoil hats out, everybody.
Well, think about it. If they want to protect Max at all costs, if he's the Bella to the Red Bull's Edward, you know what I mean? The whole Twilight dynamic and the protection of Max Verstappen is everything. I don't think they would intentionally sabotage the car because that's fucked up. But
unintentional sabotage? Is that what you're proposing? Come on. They get points for winning the constructor. They get money and a significant amount for winning the Constructors' Championship. Why would Red Bull in any way, shape, or form want to handicap their chances, even though they look like it's a lockup? I just can't see it. If I'm Christian Horner, I have no doubt in my mind that Max Verstappen is better than Checo and that he's going to win the championship. I don't have to sabotage Checo's car. Max can get a DNF or two, and I'd still be confident that Max is still going to win the championship. So, yeah, I love I know that's been some talk. That's been the and he did have some issues. They took apart the car before qualifying, rebuilt parts of Checo's car. That is, but could it just be him having this added pressure of feeling like the championship battle's on? He just went in a little bit too hot into turn 3. Could it just be that simple?
Oh, definitely. But I want to stir the pot, and I want to go for the conspiracy part of this and say maybe someone was just half a turn loose. They didn't fully torque one little bolt on the brake pedal.
Helmut Marko's just fucking with the car where he gets out there.
He's putting sand in the tires and shit.
Just throw the sandbag in the brake duct.
That was, other than that was just free practice. There was nothing too crazy. Did you want to get into qualifying, good sir?
Please.
Q1. Out in Q1, we had Piastri, Zhou, Sargent, Bottas, and weird, Perez. Mike, quick question for you. How did Perez get out in Q1?
He got stuck in the mud. Literally
what happened?
And figuratively.
Did he go off the track? In the same area?
I see you wear your tinfoil hat today. For the podcast, for all the listeners that are not watching the YouTube videos, Ian is wearing a tinfoil hat today. No, yeah, Checo went off. Was it some kind of failure? Does your rumors of sabotage have any truth to them? What is a fact is he took turn 3 too hot, ran straight off into the gravel, got stuck in some mud, literally, and could not move the car. So we had to red flag the session.
That guy had a horrible, and by that guy I mean Checo, had a horrible Saturday. The entire day it was, why'd you even show up today, buddy? You should have just stayed in bed and showed up for the race the next day, because it's pretty much what he was going to have to do anyways, starting P20. I felt horrible for him. I thought it was strange that, again, he went off in the same spot, and I thought it was strange that the driver, who knows they've been having issues in that exact corner a couple hours before, would decide to continue the same driving behavior and keep up that habit. He didn't adjust. And to not be, it's obviously Red Bull isn't sabotaging their own car. It was definitely 100% on Checo for that mistake. However, for funsies, they were sabotaging the car, so he would make that for that mistake. Then also in Q1, I just want to point out that the P16, 17, and 18, all within 1/10 of each other. And that was very close. Normally it's P16 to 15, that's 0.0 something. I haven't seen the other bottom three like that so tightly packed. And that's what I was getting excited for about this generation of vehicles. Because if you looked up and down the grid, I love doing this because it's so Formula One. Obviously, Max had the fastest time, and the slowest time, I want to say, Mike, it was, and this is quick math off the top of my head, was 1.4 seconds, plus or minus a tenth, off of the lead. And in Formula One, in racing terms, if you're new to racing, that is a mile in 5 years ahead. A second plus gap is insane. What I love about Formula One, though, is how if you do something that takes a second and a half and you realize it's not that much. I would say putting the turn signal on in your car takes about the same amount of time. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what I just love about the sport, is that it's so over exaggerated for something that's so minuscule, but you have to pay attention to that over exaggeration, because making up a second half is impossible. It's impossible, but the way everything's shaken out, I'm really, really looking forward to the rest of the season with the evolution of these cars, with all the development parts they're going to bring. Mike, we are going to be in for a tightly packed second half of the grid, at least even P7 all the way up, dude. Oh, my God.
The only time I've ever rooted for Mercedes was when Schumacher was in a Mercedes. I am actually rooting for Mercedes this year to keep it entertaining. Yeah, my main takeaway from Q1 is also Alfa Romeo being really slow.
Where the fuck have they gone?
Yeah, I don't know. Logan Sargent kind of bottling it at the end of his first flying lap. He didn't have the best weekend.
No, first time here, it's a tricky track.
Yeah, and same with Oscar. It's his first time racing there too. This isn't a circuit that they race in F2. I get it. He's probably, gutted 0.6 off making it into Q2. But what we talked about going into the whole year, what would be a good performance for Oscar, and that's being a couple tenths off Lando, and that's more or less what he was. About 2.5 tenths off of Lando Norris, who we all rate extremely highly, raced a phenomenal race as well. And Oscar finished in the points. So off to Q2 then.
Q2 out, we had Ocon, Tsunoda, Norris, Magnussen, and De Vries. I was upset with De Vries. I was happy for Yuki. Magnussen is a very big question mark, because this weekend and even last race, he was Haas's golden boy last year, and he was forming. This year, he's now in the back. I don't want to say he's the team's Mick, because I respect and I like Mick, and I think he's got the heart for it. But when I'm talking position of the car during the race or during quali, I don't know what it is. I think that maybe his second season back is starting to wear on him, because when you're coming back in for the first season, you're going to perform. you're going to want to keep that seat, and you're not going to get overloaded, I think, with all the little things because you're just happy to be there, And I want to think that he might be falling into old habits that's making him slower. I mean, I can't think of a reason for it. I hope he pulls himself out of this slump for sure.
I rewatched turn 2 in the race
when
he hit the wall. I know we're not in the race yet, but I'm having a really hard time coming up with an excuse for him hitting the wall there. Like, he just stopped paying attention from a driving perspective. I think Jensen Button even said something similar along the lines. Did he just take his eyes off the road? I mean, for him to hit the wall there, he wasn't losing the back end. He just ran into the wall, and that was a big red flag for me. I know it's a long race and everything, but yeah, that was a significant red flag. And Hulkenberg comfortably out qualifying Magnussen in Q2. I mean, we're talking 0.7. That's massive.
That's a huge gap, and you need to be within 0.23 of your teammate if you want to be considered fast in this sport. He's got some work to do ahead of him. He needs to get his head straight because I like Kevin. I like his driving style. I think he has more of that 90s mentality when it comes to racing, elbows out type of guy. So, and he's not winning. So he's got that underdog aspect to him, which you're okay with his driving style until he starts winning. Then you're like, oh, the guy's a dick. But right now, no. K-Mag, buddy, you can do it. Just get your head together. That's all I had for Q2. Did you have anything else you would like to add, my friend?
No, pretty standard. Gasly out qualifying Ocon.
Yes, in Q3. Yes, sir. Ocon ran into traffic, and he was out by a 7,000th of a second, which is the most Formula One thing I can think of for being out on something. Just that precision they have in the sport. And when you think of 0.7 of a second, 7,000ths of a second, you can't even contemplate how fast that is. But it's the difference between P11 or further up the grid.
Maybe the F1 timing sheets are off. But
I was just spitballing. I thought he was super close.
I have Hulkenberg 17.41 and Ocon 17.7.
What the fuck was I thinking about then? Who was... Oh, I was wrong. I think I might have gotten my Q1s and my Q2s mixed up. That does happen. Who got pole in Q3, good sir?
Oh, Carlos Sainz. I'm just kidding. Max Verstappen with a blazing 16.7 time. Definitely the big winner for qualifying for me is George Russell. Making it on the front row of the grid. Mercedes comeback in?
I don't know yet. We'll talk about it when we get into the race, but I was suspicious of my team's performance because they were talking new concept. Are you sandbagging us and wanting us to think, excuse me, and are you sandbagging us and wanting us to think that you're going to be throwing away this entire season so you can have people relax around you, even though no one's going to relax around a Mercedes car? I don't 100% believe that they've got a new concept coming. I think they've put too much time. We'll see. Time will tell, and we'll get into it later on in the race because I think there's something that needs to be talked about there with the performance of the Mercedes. I was wondering when Max was going to bring out that fast lap because before he got onto pole, people were ahead of him. And I was wondering, oh, okay, we've actually got people that are going to compete with him. And then, brother, where the fuck did that half-second gap come from him? Because he wasn't running fast all throughout Q3. He wasn't. Normally, you'll just see the guy who's on pole is going to be on pole. And when they have a dominant car like Max does this year, you're going to be thinking it's the only person that's going to be on top of the charts. I go back to the W11 with Valtteri and Lewis Hamilton. You just knew going in that's what the situation was going to be. So when we saw Max playing, I don't want to call it cat and mouse, he just didn't hook up a lap, and then boom, half a second faster than everybody else. Okay, all right, that's a quick car.
Yeah, I think track evolution as the qualifying sessions go on, more rubber on the track. Track typically speeds up, which is why through Q1, Q2, Q3 we typically have drivers setting faster laps. He's definitely why. This is the thing about Checo for me. Why are you even pushing? Like, your car's comfortably half a second faster. You just chill in Q1 and Q2, and you do a really hot lap in Q3. Like, all you got to do is just put in a time, dude. Like, what are you doing?
That was the conundrum
that's the
behind
Checo
it.
thing. It's like, is it? I think it's just the pressure. He's built up this. I'm challenging Max for the championship, and I got to give it my all. I got to set the fastest lap I possibly can. It's just, I think he needs a mentality shift. But yeah, Max still comfortably 2/10 ahead of everybody else for his final time. George and Lewis were a couple hundredths apart in Q2. George pulled out a 10th on his teammate, but Mercedes, they were only 2/10 off Max, who can he go faster? I'd probably say yeah. Like,
if he had another lap,
honestly, he'd probably go faster. I'm not gonna lie, but still, that's really impressive from Mercedes. They both beat Alonso. It was really close, but they both beat Alonso.
And Aston Martin's been their target, so it was good to see them out in front.
Everybody thinks Aston Martin's faster than Mercedes if you've been watching the first few races of Formula One. Ferrari, we're just not going to talk about them.
Where were they? No, I know. And I'm not trying to pick, because even during qualifying, my thought was, I don't see them up at the top, and it's concerning. Is it a grip issue? I heard it was maybe that they're just not working their tire because it was cold. We have to remember, you brought up a great point talking about track evolution. For those of you who are new to Formula One and listening, the teams will, before the race starts, they'll laser scan the entire track and look for bumps. They will talk about what type of aggregate, yada, 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 to maximize the potential in these vehicles. And one thing that is going around in the paddock for a conspiracy of why the Ferrari was slow is that just the tires and the track were too cold to work with each other. They just didn't get into what's called the operating window, the stickiness for that compound to go. I'm concerned with Ferrari, Mike, legitimately concerned.
Yeah, I know Charles has some issues putting in his ideal lap in Q3, but in the grand scheme of things, we always thought Red Bull was the fastest car. We always thought Aston Martin was faster than Ferrari, I think, given the first couple of races. Sainz split Alonso and Stroll, and Leclerc just had troubles putting in a lap. So I'm going to, just forget about this weekend. I'm not going to put the sirens on just yet. But, yeah,
stand out.
Just doesn't feel great. Hopefully they can bridge the gap like Mercedes has done in race weekends to come. Standouts for me, definitely Albon.
Yes, that's Gasly, the only one for me.
Yeah, like Gasly comfortably beating his teammate.
Oh, dude, wait, hold on. Let me bring this back into the podcast for everybody. Say we have to bring up Albon again. Ready? Let me know.
Nice. Alex Albon. Have a day, kid.
Woo!
You kind of
purple sectors in that second sector in Q1,
Yeah.
2, and 3. The kid was on it. And I am
He
so
was.
happy to see a Williams going fast again. And it's
In
the
Q1.
performance. It's the performance of Alex that makes me think that these regulations, because I'm not 100% in love with penalizing the winners the way that they are. However, the performance of Williams is kind of lessening that frustration towards penalizing the winners, because it's so good to see that car finally look like it's on some sort of rails. Beforehand, the car was just a mess. For Williams, it was frustrating and sad to see, and we both love the team so much, and I'm very excited to see what Albon does because of the performance he's putting in.
Yeah, and he put a great performance in Australia last year with his famous last lap pit stop, just to meet the regulations and not get disqualified. He could have done an entire race on one set of tires around there. So not only is he fast, but
he can
he
drive.
needs to take care of the tires as well when he's in Australia. And I just wish he didn't empty the whole tank in qualifying. We had a lot of drivers hitting the wall in the race and going off the track, but shame he couldn't see out the whole weekend with his strong performance. But yeah, Gasly 9th, Hulkenberg 10th, and pretty standard. Albon, the Williams fastest, best of the rest, only 2.5 tenths off of a Ferrari. So yeah, round of applause, well deserved for Alex Albon.
Well, sir, that's it for the weekend pump up for the race on my end. Do you have anything more about the weekend pump up?
There's a lot to talk about for the race.
Okay, let's get
I hate 1 a.m. races.
On to the race. Lights out, away we go. Turn 3. Mike, I thought of you instantly.
It's turn 1. George is in the lead. Yeah. Verstappen had a bad start. He's just in the zone of his car being faster than everybody else, and didn't really contemplate that George could actually overtake him. I thought it was really interesting. Right after, and obviously Leclerc went off turn 3. We're not going to get.
Well, yeah, we got to though, because Charles was going to.
We had a safety car. I find it really interesting though. Max immediately gets on the radio, goes, "He pushed me off turn 1. George
for
pushed me
Lewis.
off turn 1. He didn't leave me any room."
That was Lewis.
George pushed him off.
That was down into turn 3. Down into turn 3, Lewis went up the inside because Max braked 25 meters before the normal braking zone. It was weird to see him be that cautious going into the corner. So Lewis saw the opportunity, cuts up the inside. They're basically wheel to wheel at that point at the apex, and on the exit of the corner, the car's going to go wide, and Lewis did not push him wide. It was just the natural progression of a car going through a corner. And when Max said that, I got pissed because Max is extremely aggressive and has done way worse.
Maybe I misunderstood the driver feedback. Jenson Button immediately came to the defense of George as they were showing the turn 1 with that audio from Max, showing he gave you plenty of room, and you even gave him room going around the outside of turn 1. So, yeah, whether it was for George, whether it was for Lewis, Max was trying to play some games to see if he could fire up some people.
I think he gave George the room into turn 1 because he knows his car's superior, and he doesn't need to risk a turn 1 incident for the entire championship. He's learning. I think it showed maturity that he
could have so easily just closed the gap, forced George to have to brake earlier, take a line that was tighter to the apex. I think his car had the ability to do that, and he just was like, I don't really have to. But I just found it really interesting that Jensen was immediately like, no, not at all. You gave him plenty of room, and he gave you room as well. He did not push you wide.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, really cool to have two Mercedes at the top for a very short period of time after my boy goes off on turn 3 and causes us to have a red flag. They deemed it a racing incident. I was obviously fired up, as every Ferrari fan was. You could hear the fans, whoa, in the background after the incident. It was a tight, really tight couple cars going, 3 abreast into turn 3 with Carlos, Lewis, and Max, as well as Stroll, Leclerc, and I believe it was Alonso at that time. Lance is kind of caught in the middle, so I'm not. It's kind of just a racing incident for me, unfortunately, as much as I'd like to blame somebody. It was just really tight. Lance didn't have anywhere to go left or right, and they kind of just, I think it was his right rear tire hit Lance's car and pushed the back end out, and it was beached after that. Red flag.
Almost. We had our first red flag of 3 in the race. I was about right around lap 9 or so. I was rooting for Albon. He was in P6, brother. He was moving up in places and holding position, and then the rear end on his car just let loose. And the angle that he came back on the track, my heart stopped for Nico Hulkenberg because the accident happened right in front of him. Alonso was able to drive right by because he passed before the incident.
Right.
The reaction times of Hulkenberg, and to keep driving normally after that too, instead of like being like, right. I need to pull over and catch my breath right now because I almost just slammed into the side of a guy going 160 miles an hour. The first red flag, though, I have an issue with, Mike. Why did they bring out the red flag?
Yeah, I'm jumping the gun a little bit on the red flag. It was just a safety car after Charles is in the gravel. Albon hit the wall.
I thought it was because they were going to fix the barriers, but it was because of gravel, dude. That's why they brought out never in my life have I seen a red flag come out for gravel, especially when you're 10 laps into the race. You're okay. We're going to lose 5 to 7 laps to clean this up under a safety car. I didn't get the move. And because of Charles's safety car issue, a bunch of people pit like George Russell from the lead. Right. And then when they brought out the red flag, because they did the safety car for Albon and as well for like half a lap, and then boom, red flag. And that just throws everybody's strategy who pit during the Charles yellow flag out the window.
I mean, hit the wall pretty hard. There was a lot of debris from the car as well as gravel to have to remove the car because it's kind of. I understand why they red flag that. Be nice if we had.
I don't agree with it at all.
Instantaneous red flags, but I think the red flag is all right in that situation. It's unfortunate that George got screwed over by the tire strategy and ended up not Carlos mattering.
Carlos did too. He got right. Screwed. He went down to P11. I'm trying to think who else. I mean, a bunch of people got relegated to the back. And guys, if you're new to Formula One, when you have a red flag, they bring everybody into the pits, stop the race, bring people into the pits, and then you can work on your car and change tires, which is the entire strategy to a fucking race. Is when am I going to get my guy to change his tires? So that's why
I would love
it
if they changed
that
rule, Ian.
I'm okay with that being changed.
They could not change tires on a red flag because you completely cancel out tire strategy. I mean, there was a few teams that didn't have to change tires under racing conditions, like Aston Martin. I think Alpine may have been the other team. There were literally teams where the pit crew wasn't they were just able to, chill, relax, take off the tires willy nilly, take their time. Yeah, it's always bothered me that red flags cause tire strategies to not really matter as much. I would love it if they changed that rule for future years. But yeah, a few drivers getting screwed over. Obviously, George, the most notable one at the time, pitting with the lead, but the engine failure retirement ended up to not really matter, unfortunately, for George. But he had a great weekend.
Once the red flag's over, we had a standing start again, and Max got away nicely, not as good as Lewis did. Lewis took the lead, and the only time I was happy for Lewis to be in the lead, but I knew that within the moment DRS was available, that Red Bull was going to be going. And Mike, when he passed Lewis going into turn 9, half a lap later, that's pretty much almost about the halfway point, he gapped him by 2 seconds.
Yep. It was really close. And is that, Lewis is smart. As much as people give Lewis a really hard time for being a crybaby at times, during his dominance, he was not a very popular figure, except for if you were a Mercedes fan, due to the way that he carried himself, the way he, would complain over the radio, say his tires are gone, and then put in the fastest lap. But Lewis is really smart. He hardly ever makes mistakes, especially when they were dominating Formula One. Lewis never made mistakes, and that's what made Lewis so good and an all-time great as a Formula One driver. Is that just is that just Lewis managing his tires, knowing I'm not battling Verstappen here. I want to finish this race in second place, so I'm going straight into tire management. We heard him over the radio. He was extremely skeptical that those tires could finish the race. It turns out everybody was able to get fresh tires anyway after next red flag. But was that just Lewis thinking the long game, Ian?
100%. He knows. He's been in a car that quick before, and he understands where to put your time in. Because when you go attack or defend, you're going to lose time to the people behind you. And the person behind him was 2-time champion Fernando Alonso. So he had to keep that in the forefront of his mind. Of course he wants to win, and of course he wasn't going to make it easy. But when you've got somebody driving like Max Verstappen is, the person I compare him to is 2004 Schumi. After I saw him gap Lewis like that after a half a lap, that's the only person I could think of. And so when you have a 2004 Schumi behind you, you're not going to stop him. I'm sorry. I love Lewis. I am a huge Mercedes fan, and I think that he just understood what was about to go down. There's nothing you can do against it. The deficit in speed comparatively from Red Bull to the other teams on the grid with that DRS open is obscene and absurd. I don't understand how they can get that much speed out of it. Their DRS just is mind-boggling. But Lewis, like you said, was playing the long game. And he needed to play the long game because we were hoping for a charge in the back from George Russell to make this a Ham-Russ podium. And all of our hopes, well, mine, were destroyed when you just saw flames shooting out the back of that fucking... No. No. And it's a Mercedes engine. They're known for reliability. It was weird.
Very true. And sucks for George. But if you're a Mercedes fan, which Ian is, there's a lot of positives to take away from the weekend. The fact that Lewis was able to fend off Alonso for all those laps with some fantastic tire management, time management as well, keeping Fernando out of the 1 second range if you're within a second to the car in front in Formula One. You're able to get DRS. Whether or not Fernando would have passed Lewis or not with DRS, it doesn't matter. He was able to keep Alonso slower than Hamilton. He was able to keep Alonso slow down as much as possible while maintaining his tires and maintaining a 1 second gap advantage, which is just pure racecraft, which is what we come to expect from Lewis. So if you're a Mercedes fan, there's having Lewis finish P2, that feels good.
It was on merit today for sure. And I thought it was
Absolutely
very funny with the commentators talking about, the battle between Alonso and Lewis. It's coming up. Just a couple more laps. Just a couple more laps. Just a couple more laps. And then the race was over and it never fucking happened because, that's right. There's 9 world championships between these two. They've raced with each other in McLaren in 2007. I'm pretty sure they know the cat and mouse games they're going to play with each other. And it was just watching chess on 4 wheels. It was incredible.
Let's not be too greedy, Ian. We got the Lando Hulkenberg action at least.
Yo, can we please talk about McLaren and how they did this weekend? I was not looking forward to it from the free practice sessions and a little bit into qualifying, but with Oscar getting into the points, like you said earlier, in his home race, I'm proud of him. And Mike, I have to make some slight concessions with my opinion of this man because of his performance this weekend. Ears are open. I was very proud of him, and I think that he showed, because he did some one overtake going into turn 9. That's ballsy. I didn't understand how. First of all, when did turn 9 become an overtaking spot?
When they took out the chicane,
dude.
That's why.
Checo.
The chicane used to be an overtaking zone. That the stretch of that straight it was always a DRS zone, but due to the way that the chicane was, it was a pretty short straight, so it really wasn't time to there wasn't any room to really overtake there and then get ready for the turn in on turn 9. The car in front would just stay wide, and you can't take turn 9 anyway, but as far outside for entry as you possibly can. So, yeah, I'm still kind of in the middle about how I feel about it. I miss the chicane a little bit because the more skill a track takes to drive, I think the better. But yeah, I think that's why we saw so many overtakes, Ian. But they're just so easy breezy. Like when you talk about Verstappen overtaking Lewis, it was like it's
Checo.
Not really. Yeah.
Checo made some moves down in there. I watched the.
Yes,
I know we're talking about McLaren, but I'm now on to turn 9. We'll come back to McLaren, I promise. But
McLaren are good.
That's how about that? McLaren's good.
That's the headline. McLaren are good. Thank God. Yeah, Lando absolutely being a dog, working Hulkenberg. Loved it. That was a brilliant overtake. Definitely one of my top highlights of the entire race, the entire weekend. Absolutely sick move by Lando, and McLaren are good. We can be really happy that we have 2 McLarens in the points, albeit a lot of freaking retirements.
Extenuating circumstances.
All right. We had a lot of freaking retirements. I think we had 12 cars finish the race.
Yeah.
So we did have 12 cars finish the race. So there's only a couple spots up for grabs that don't get you points. But, it's still a promising performance from McLaren. Lando had a phenomenal drive. So we got to give it to McLaren. The thing is, the highest place McLaren was in 13th in qualifying. So
was this a race-specific win? Was it a track-specific fast car?
Is this driver diff where Lando's just really fast and he was able to? Yeah, all those are in question, Ian. But
they did. The team did what they were supposed to do. Exactly. And when you get a race as crazy as this one, you can't not get points. Like you have to. These are the days that you have to get the points. And we saw with just for the importance of it all, remember when Lewis didn't do Magic Button in Baku last year? That's the reason why he didn't win the world championship. So
I love the Magic Button incident.
I threw a hammer at the TV. So with
Oh my goodness.
Lando and Oscar doing this, it was great for the team. It was really showing that they understand at that young age that they are, every single point matters. And it really should boost the team moving forward. Moving forward, too, Checo, I do want to speak about his performance this race because that dude was on fucking fire. Vamos, Checo. Turn 9 was his bitch. I don't know how else to put it, but he was lap after lap putting in moves down the inside, around the outside on a 150-mile-an-hour tight corner. And at the end, at the post-race interview, Christian Horner said he was driving like he didn't have 3 kids. That's how fast he was. And he came in P5 with an expectation of P8. So he exceeded expectations. He fought hard for a horrible weekend. And I think that what you said earlier is that the pressure he's under is what was getting to him during the practice and quali sessions. So he needs to just understand that just look at your race, man. Look at what you just accomplished and realize you got to let it flow.
I mean, he got bailed out by the safety cars and the red flags towards the end of the race. I think without those, he would have not been P5. But my main takeaway from this, it's quite a significant points difference from first to fifth. Max can get away with a DNF now, which is huge. Max is essentially allowed a DNF now, and it's not going to be that big of a deal. So that's my main takeaway from this whole thing. Max is probably a little pissed off with the red flag and the yellows, the safety car at the end of the race, because his gap would have been even larger to Checo if we did not have those occur. But Max allowed a DNF now.
At no point in time did that cross my mind. That's huge for the championship, Mike.
Massive. Max can literally DNF, and I'll have to get the standings in front of me to see how just exactly where we're at in points. So Max 69, Checo 54. Little joke for the kids. No, but literally 69 and 54. So he's got a 15-point lead. So, theoretically, if Max were to DNF next race, Checo comes in first. Checo still is the leader, but just by 10 points. So it's to the point where if Max gets a DNF, his championship hopes aren't over. So that was my main takeaway from the Checo and Max placing.
Do you want to talk about that second red flag? We alluded to it with Kevin Magnussen losing concentration. I honestly think the sun might have just been in his eyes. I hope so. I really hope
no
so.
Excuse, man.
Oh my God. Well, when you watch it, it looked like he barely kissed that wall, but they're coming at such a fantastic speed that of course your right rear tire is going to explode like that. It really didn't look like that hard of a smack. When a guy, there was no wiggle in the car. So it was just, as Jenson Button strange, odd to see an accident there. I don't know what the hell was up with Kevin Magnussen, but that brought out our second red flag for the session with, 5 laps to go in the race, something like that. And it caused for probably one of the worst restarts I have seen in recent history for Formula One. And also, Mike, this second red flag brought out a very big talking point. What was that talking point? What was your first thought when you saw that red flag?
I thought of Abu Dhabi 2021. This is what they should have done.
I did too. I thought it was a correct call. I don't know why. I can understand why you keep the safety car out. Like I said earlier, that I think you could have kept the safety car out for the Albon crash. But when you're that close to the finish of a race, I'm okay with a red flag right there.
red flag it. Let's actually get a race, an exciting ending to a race. Like, what's the latter is what happens in Abu Dhabi in 2021, where albeit I think if principals aren't yelling at the stewards for the entire time, telling them what to do, we get a decision quicker. But that was the right decision for me. That was by far the right decision. Let's get a good ending to this race. It was fantastic, and there's a little bit of arguments between a couple of our commentators on Sky.
Dude, what was up with Kravitz?
Kravitz and Crofty going on each other. Kravitz just a little whiny about still what happened in 2021, and Crofty was very quick to nip that in the butt and say Michael Masi is a human being. And he repeated that several times. He is a human being. And it's great to see him here. And yeah, all the best to Masi. And I was a Masi defender myself. So yeah, I thought that was great to see. For years, I felt the British bias watching Formula One with how everybody just gloated over Lewis weekend after weekend. It got extremely boring and painful, honestly. When Max was by far in the lead, it'd be, what a disappointing race nowadays. And back then it was another dominant performance by Lewis Hamilton. Like, it's got to work both ways. So I'm glad that Crofty's trying to undo the bias a little bit. It got to the point where it was so bad that Red Bull actually vetoed Sky for a weekend.
What was so bad? Okay, so when you're talking bias, you're talking that the favoritism of the call against Lewis, other than saying, you know what, this is what happened, we have to move on as a collective.
Yeah, they simply just felt there was no objectivity about the discussion between Saudi and just the talks between the two teams. And I think ever since then, they've tried to take a more neutral approach, which they should do.
Because
when
they're
somebody
commentators.
Who's watching, they're commentators. It's somebody watching the race like me saying, wow, I can feel the bias. That's not good. It's not. It's bad for the sport.
Well, I think Ted was biased towards the rules, not towards the person. I know Ted just didn't like how the safety car was immediately brought in. And I
understand that perspective, Ian. I really do.
That's my position.
I'm looking at historically, their take on F1 was biased. Predating 2021 Abu Dhabi, it was pro Lewis over everything else.
I don't think so.
I don't heavily felt that watching Formula One.
Oh, I don't believe so, because you would look at
You're
the
also
performance.
Lewis Hamilton and a Mercedes fan.
Well, that's true, but you have to look
there
at
may be a slight
look at
bias
Silverstone
there as well.
2018. When Max was able to finally take the charge, or was it 2019?
Yep.
That's, I mean,
I think it was 19.
You gave.
If you're talking about the incident.
Not the incident. It was, I mean, he finally just had pace in the car that one time. It was like, I remember the radio call that they were telling Max to hold off on attacking the Mercedes, and Max came on the radio and said, mate, this is the closest we've been all season. Let's go for it.
I remember that.
That's,
and it was 18, I think. Yeah, you're right.
And it's kind of hard to not, I don't want to say bias, but when you have a team that's winning over everybody by 20 seconds every single fucking race, there's gonna be a consistent conversation of the people in that team being dominant. There's no other way. Look at Tom Brady and the Patriots. Look at Tiger Woods in golf. Look at Michael Phelps in swimming. Look at I don't know soccer, so sorry for our European or football. I don't. So sorry to our
Manchester City.
international fans. Yes,
Manchester City of late in the EPL.
Whenever you're the king, you're going to be talked about, and then you're going to want to bring up the usurper. And Max was that usurper, and he's now getting into that era where it's Max dominant. I think the switch has to come from the performance of the teams. And yes, I agree with you that commentators, I love their personal opinions, but when it comes to the matter of favoritism in a driver or favoritism in a team, you got to leave that shit out the door.
Yeah, and I get it. They're British. They're gonna favor the British drivers. Like, I think it's totally natural. I guess where I'm coming from is during the broadcast when Max started pulling away from Lewis, Crofty said, "Another. It looks like we're gonna have a disappointing race in Australia. Max is pulling away." Where when Lewis was dominating, the narrative was different. That's my point. The narrative was Lewis pulling away, showing he's the dominant driver of Formula One, versus Max pulling away. We're in for a boring race.
I can see that. I can see
how
that
disappointing.
Okay,
that's
I
where
understand.
I'm coming from.
I 100% understand. Oh, okay, then yes, I understand that, because you shouldn't say it's disappointing when you. Okay, thank you for bringing that clearer to me, Mike. Thank you. I completely agree with you on that end. Okay, yeah, no, okay, that makes sense. Oh,
I just don't think it's fair.
It's not. Nope, I agree. It's not. You can't do that. I think you could have. I like it when they have personal opinions against rulings. I love that. Like when they were doing that. God, after the third red flag. Okay, so
yeah, back to the red flag.
we have totally to get into
a left turn there. My note for the red flag was, "Oh my God, restart." There's not many things that's going to get me up, like standing yelling at the TV at 3 a.m. That was one of them,
dude.
That was freaking insane. Like Ocon and Gasly colliding, Checo and Stroll running wide, Carlos Rams Alonso, like.
Sargent ran into the back of
so this is my take, okay? You're going to penalize Carlos, but you're not going to penalize Sargent? I get it, he didn't finish the race, but, like, we literally gave a race ban to drivers that did something similar to what Sargent did. And we're just going to penalize the Ferrari? Are you freaking kidding me?
I didn't think that was a good call. Yes, Carlos went in too deep. However, it's a turn one incident. You have to treat it like that. It's a restart.
I thought that was extremely harsh. You're just going to put the positions were reset anyway because we didn't set any sector 1 times. Why not just let the boys go back at it again? Why are you penalizing anybody? I thought that was very, very harsh, Ian.
It was extremely harsh. Did you hear? I thought Carlos was going to start crying in the cockpit when he was talking to his teams after they told him he was going to get a 5-second time penalty.
I thought it was interesting. He's like, don't do this without talking to me first. Like, he's going to walk in there and, totally have this, like, I'm going to change their minds, mentality. I like that they're trying to make decisions before the final results after Saudi, and we had that whole Alonso's on podium. Alonso's not on the podium. Alonso's on the podium. But that felt extremely harsh, given how much else went on. And that restart. That restart was insane, Ian.
Pierre Gasly. So my first initial thought when I saw the Alpines, who I love, crash, I blamed Ocon without knowing who did it, because Ocon does have a history of taking out teammates.
I felt the same exact way. But watching the replays, it was just like, oh, this just feels bad. Like,
he was an innocent bystander.
Like, just
Pierre had no idea he was there. None.
Well, there's so much shit going on around him. It's hard to, like, really come to terms with everything that's going on. And it kind of just felt like a racing incident, but I don't know. They showed very few clips of it because there's so much else that went on during that repeated red flag. Like, again, it's How do you feel about that? Is that just a racing incident, Ian?
It was a pure racing incident. Jensen put it in a nice way when he said that Pierre should have recognized that when you have that many people around you, a car's width just to the right of you should have been left. But the position of it was a race. It was one of those things. It was a racing incident, 100%. It was Pierre's fault if you had to put blame onto him. But I don't put that type of blame on him. You know what I mean? Not like, oh, you're an idiot. It was just wrong place for the car at the wrong time. Nothing crazy.
They went right to the radio with Otmar, like freaking like seconds.
How did Otmar hold his shit together like that?
Incident?
I thought Otmar handled that like a champ. I really felt he gave all of the right answers. I was really, really impressed by the way Otmar took that and said, basically, Gasly had a fantastic drive. It's a shame he wasn't able to finish that off.
He was running up in P5.
With a performance.
He was on the tail of Carlos.
Gasly was phenomenal
all weekend. Race. I was very proud of him.
Phenomenal. I absolutely loved Gasly's performance.
And to keep on the back of Carlos like he did, because Sainz was moving. We finally saw Ferrari driving like a Ferrari this season. And that gave me hope for Alpine that they were, for lap after lap, to keep Stroll off of his back, he just stayed in the DRS until he got a big enough gap where he could let Carlos go or his tires were whatever. Pierre did a fantastic drive. I feel horrible for him that it ended on such a note. And Ocon, too. He was moving up into the points. He got screwed with that yellow flag, red flag, tire change situation. That's why he was all the way in the back, because he was one of those people. So Alpine, in general, is looking, once again, you don't hear about them. They're doing great.
Which was Otmar's second point when they asked him questions, is we have a lot of positives to take away. And I think they do. They were really fast. They were two cars that were going to score good points. And red flag restart, they came out by far the worst, unfortunately. And Aston Martin got bailed out. They were going to have two cars out of the points and ended up with a 3-4.
That whole debate of what to do was extremely interesting and confusing all at the same time. I think they made the right call, because it was lap 58 of 58 where they red flagged for the third time. That's when this whole who's going to start where, what are we going to do? And before we went into that situation, I have to give credit to Alonso, because
I was just going to say the same thing.
After he got spun out, he was like, oh, what the fuck? Hey, remember Silverstone? They have to do that this time.
Dude, I was literally going to say the exact same thing. Yeah, like Alonso just knowing the rules and knowing he was going to get the place back, like before people even started debating it. He already knew what was going to happen. Like, goated Alonso. Oh, Fernando Alonso. Yeah, I literally had the same note, man. You're awesome. Another side note, the Australian wave during that red flag break, for anybody that watched, was freaking awesome.
Did they go around the whole?
They pretty much went around the entire grandstand. It started to teeter out. But that is so many people that has all basically participated. We love you, Australia. It's so good to be back there.
I love coming here, and I love the fans here. They have to be some of the most dedicated because of the time zone. I was so confused all weekend. Like when qualifying or the race, we're waiting for race day on a Saturday, but it's already the race day in Australia. Okay, let's do this. Good for you guys. You are showing a lot of heart. And the 450,000 people showed up this weekend. A mass of people that were there to show out is awesome, and I know we love seeing it.
It's the last major talking point. They ended up restarting the race with the previous lineup with the driver positions reset to the previous red flag restart, with Sainz having a 5-second penalty. And the entire, there's debate over should they just call it? Do the cars even need to go out anymore? And the argument was, well, they still need to cross the line in 58 entire laps. A car could theoretically break down. If we call it there, then we'd have to take the last posted results sector timing, which would give Alpine points. So they had to go back around the track in.
I was confused about the Alpine situation they kept bringing up, Mike, because they were out, in my opinion, but people were saying that since they started, they would somehow still get points.
Yes. So since the last, the stewards would have to go with the last classified positions. And since we did not set a sector one time before the red flags came out, we would go back to the original grid positions without any running necessary, which would still have Gasly up there in the points. So that is, I think the way that they did it was the best they could have possibly done it. Besides giving Sainz a 5-second penalty,
bullshit,
would create a very interesting dynamic of everybody driving as fast as they could to get to the line while not overtaking each other. And I don't know if you were like me, I started counting as soon as Sainz passed. 1, 2, 3. They're all passed. God damn it! Like for other points, like it was all of them got by perfectly. I was like, I'm done watching. That's some bullshit. Like, yeah, no.
An incredible drive by Sainz was diminished instantly. They had like 7 people stacked up as close as they could be behind the guy. I love how competitive this sport is. Anything to get a point, anything. And the teams behind Carlos did do anything they could. I'm concerned about Logan Sargent after this weekend.
Me too.
He was
a bad weekend.
He was getting, he said some shit. I don't know exactly what over the radio, but I remember one of the commentators saying like, hey man, you got to like watch your mouth. You can't be doing this. He seems to be a bit of a hothead. And I know he's never driven here before. I'm not thinking that he is going to be in next season. I'm saying it 3 races in. That's a big statement to say.
Ooh.
I think that if he's showing, if this is the best he can do, it's not looking all that good, man.
He came out really hot. The first race weekend looked really good. Mm-hmm. We were all thoroughly impressed with his performance the first race weekend, and hasn't looked too good the last 2 races. Now, we're only 3 races in. He's a rookie. We weren't thinking too highly of De Vries at the very beginning of the races either. So if he's fast, he will stay. If he's that much slower than Albon, he will be out.
This whole race, thank you for bringing that up. This whole race showed a disparity between teammates that I haven't seen before. It was right around lap 33, 35. If you guys go back and look, just take a peek at the timing charts. And instead of teammates being, a couple places away from each other, there was some fucking split 7 places between, I bring up Magnussen and Hulkenberg, Zhou and Bottas, Albon, Logan, even De Vries and Yuki, who, by the way, congratulations, Yuki, on this race. I don't know if he got into the points, but I do know that he ran a very clean race and he was racing very hard and he kept out of trouble, which is big for Yuki. I think
he got a point.
He got a point?
Yeah, he ended up finishing P10.
Woo! Yeah, Yuki-san. There you go, man. I think, but the
Yeah.
disparity between it was odd. It was very odd to see. It seems like some people click with these cars and others simply do not. The team that was closest together, though, was McLaren, which is very impressive, and it was Alpine until they took each other out, which was heartbreaking. But overall, Mike, as far as talking about, I think it was just a very good race to watch. It had a lot of action. I think it has calls that you and I can talk about for the rest of the season because of just the difference of opinions that we have. It's a really fantastic drive by everybody there who finished.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Overall, I loved this race.
Australia never disappoints. It's definitely one of the good ones. It's good to be back there after the not having a few races due to the pandemic. So yeah, I don't know. I think it was good. Again, I hate 1 a.m. races. It doesn't make it easy to keep track of all the fine details at 3 a.m, especially with all the red flags and incidents that's just prolonged the whole thing. But it's a solid race, man. It's like 8 out of 10 for me. It's pretty good.
We have to bring up, or I want to bring up, an OG move by Fernando on the podium. I don't know if you caught this, but he went to the guardrail and dropped the bottle of champagne to one of his mechanics. I haven't seen someone do that in years, and that is an OG move on Alonso. I love him even more after this race because of what he was able to think about on lap 58 after getting spun out and by giving somebody a champagne bottle the way he did. Also, on the podium, I don't know if you saw this, but did you see the direct shot the Red Bull engineer took from Max? Dude, the guy cracks open and is just drinking the champagne, and then, dude, Max, like money shot close, just pops the fucking bottle off in this dude's face, and he just took it all like a champ. Yeah.
Whenever I think of the engineers, I just think back of like when Mercedes was dominating, and I'm like, all right, who wants to go at this time? Like, we're all on our second time around through. I wonder if it ever gets to that point with the Red Bull guys. But yeah, the whole drop in the bottle thing, classic. I love it. Love it when the teams do that. I'm not gonna spray a bunch of champagne on you. Here, take the whole bottle. Somebody catch this. It's a classic Formula One. I would love it for. Make it so the driver who finishes, first in Australia has to do a shoey.
That would
Can
be
I get
sweet.
a reg change?
It's disgusting. The shoey is disgusting, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that about me.
It's gross. But it's like an Aussie thing, right? So like, let's make it mandatory.
Yeah. Instead of the Jack Brabham trophy, it's just a shoe.
You want this trophy, huh? No, Stewie first.
Oh, brother, who was your driver of the day?
None of them finished.
I was wanting it to be Pierre.
Lewis.
What?
Lewis.
No
Lewis,
way.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I would expect Checo to rip up the. I'm not as impressed by everybody with the fastest car passing slow cars. It probably Lewis or Lando. I mean, Hulkenberg drove great as well. But
Hulkenberg's mine because of his performance the entire weekend. That dude was up in the timing charts.
Maybe Lando. Honestly, Lando probably outperformed everybody else, given the
machinery,
where his car was at. Exactly, his machinery. Q13 in qualifying to put it P6. I'm actually going to have to give it to Lando because Lewis was, P3. He finished P2. Like, what?
Yeah.
That's not crazy impressive, but Lando, I got to give it to Lando for that sick overtake. Yeah, I'm giving it to Lando actually. And you're going with Magnussen, you said?
No, Hulkenberg.
Or Hulkenberg?
Yeah, I think he just drove brilliantly all weekend long, and I was I loved the argument that Haas brought up to bring him to keep him at P4 before the reshuffle of the order on the last lap. They had me thinking it was kind of like a hold up. They do have a point here because they were saying, guys, we have one lap to go. Let's just finish the race as is. We've already done a bunch of sectors, and
Right.
it was hopeful in my mind that we would get Hulkenberg into P4. But hey, man, he could do P7, P8. I think he did a fantastic job all weekend.
Yeah, seven.
Yep.
Yeah, he did a great job. Ian, are we gonna get into our predictions at all?
I am trying to find my mouse to get to the spreadsheet.
I've got it open right now.
Oh, yeah, thank God, Mike. I couldn't do it. I couldn't find it. Okay.
So, quali. The positions. For those of you guys that didn't catch the last race weekend's podcast, we made some predictions. We're gonna give 1 point per prediction if you get the answer exactly correct. So very strict. So if we projected Checo second in qualifying, he has to finish second in quali to get a point. Second in the race, he has to finish second in the race. So yeah, let's get right into it. So quali, we ended up with Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton, Alonso. So I get 2 points for Max Alonso in first and
0.
fourth. You had Max
I thought I put
You had-
Checo on pole.
qualifying. You had Max.
Oh, I did? Oh, wow. Okay, there's a point. I'll take it. Woo!
So yeah, that's 1 point for you. I think you outdid me in the race. So in the race, I had Max first, Checo second, Alonso in third. Actually, I'm sorry. I actually get another 2 points.
Oh. The guy that can open the spreadsheet is just
I'm not trying to
magically
be-
getting points
I'm
here.
not trying to be a dick. You had Checo first, Max second, Leclerc third. I love
What the
putting
fuck
Leclerc
was I
on there,
thinking,
yeah.
dude? What's it from?
You're so highly on Checo. I was like,
Oh.
whoa, man. So Scrapper Award kind of got all screwed up because we had so many DNFs. We were both wrong. We both had Magnussen and Hulkenberg in P10, and we already addressed earlier that was Yuki.
Well, I'm happy.
big-
I'm happy that we're both wrong on that because
Yeah,
that
I'm
shows
happy that we're both wrong.
yeah, and points
So-
wise.
Yeah. P20. So who is actually 20th in the final standings? I said Sargent. You said Bottas. It was actually Charles Leclerc. I'm not crying. I just got something in my eye.
Technically, it was Bottas if we want to count finishers. If we're doing P20, then Charles. But Bottas, he came in last technically again because Sargent took out De Vries, the only two people.
Sainz is last.
Sweet, Sainz. I thought he got P. Oh my god.
Sainz, no, every car
Oh my
passed the line
god.
within 5 seconds. Every last car within 5 seconds crossed the line. Sainz was last out of the
It
finishers.
was that bad. I thought he got like just outside
No,
the
he lost
points.
he went to the back of the grid with the 5 second penalty.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That poor guy.
Well, do you
That's-
want to change that rule moving forward? We both got it wrong, but moving forward, do you want to change it so it's not actually, we don't count DNFs, we count, or do you want to be 20th is the 20th on the list?
20th on the list because who knew
I think we
Charles
go with
would have
20th on the list, so there's no question. So it's
Yeah.
actually Leclerc. And fastest lap, I had Leclerc, you had Joe. Obviously, those are both wrong. Who actually had our fastest lap?
it was Checo at the end, I believe, no?
It was Checo with a 122. So either one of us could have accurately predicted that, but neither of us did. So where are we going next to race? Ian?
Where are we going? First, we're going to What are the tally of the points so I can know how far behind I am from you?
I got 4. You got 1.
Fuck, dude. Oh my god. It's over. The season's over. I'm packing.
God. It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
We
We
are.
got many more races. We had 20 of these to do, my friend.
I don't. Mike, I pressed the floodgates immediately. Okay. For next.
just like you're part of the Mercedes crew.
Yeah. Just instantly fall. Just wow, God. We're in Azerbaijan, Baku, and this is
Love
my
Baku. It's one of
favorite race of the year. Save
top
Monaco.
3 for me.
I
top 3.
love Baku, and it doesn't happen until the end of the month. This is can we
Yeah.
spring break? We got a spring break
Spa
going
is
right
probably
now?
the best racetrack. I'm gonna have to give it to Spa. I think Spa is the best race.
No, it's a,
Like the
that's
best
classic.
racetrack is
That's
Spa.
a classic. Yeah, it's
But
long. It's
Baku
fast.
is so close. I love Baku. The castle section, that massive straight. Always think of the Daniel Ricciardo, Max Verstappen coming together. You got the magic button incident, which we talked about earlier. Love Baku. Absolutely love Baku. So qualifying in, who you taking 1 through 4? Who's in the front 2 rows?
Lewis, George, Max, Alonso.
Checo not to be found. Oh my God. I'm going to go Max, Checo.
Smart. Smart.
I just think that they still have the fastest car. I just don't think it's
They do.
Lewis George. Wow. Wow. I'm going
I
to go
think they've
Max,
been sandbagging.
Checo, George, Alonso.
Max, Checo, no Lewis.
I think Lewis is 5th.
That makes sense. George is fucking quick, man. That kid can drive. He is so good. He is so good.
I still think he's maybe not after this weekend where he got a DNF and Lewis got 2nd place points as 18-point swing. I thought George was going to not comfortably, but I thought he was going to outscore Lewis again.
Mm-hmm.
After this weekend, maybe not. But who are you taking in the race? Who's on the podium?
Max, just because of the speed. The speed of that
Yep.
Red Bull is undeniable. And like you said, that home straight's a mile long. They're going to open up that DRS and fly by.
Yep.
Checo. And then I want Carlos. I want Carlos to get on there.
Oh my God. I'm not, you know what? I'm going to not. I voted for multiple Ferrari. I voted Ferrari 3rd quali. I voted for a Ferrari fastest lap. I'm not voting for any Ferraris, and maybe something good happens. Maybe I'm the problem, Tifosi.
You're now the
I'm going to go with Max. I'm going to join you with Max Checo. It's kind of hard with that straight to think. And there's a lot of straights in Baku that anybody's going to touch the Red Bulls. I think Max Checo is going to be comfortable. So the 3rd spot is up for grabs. I'm going to take Lewis. I think Lewis is a
Yay.
bad qualifying, but he bounces back and edges out Alonso. Scrap Rewardian, who's 10th?
Joe. I'm high on Joe, man.
Wow. After their
I'm-
performance in Australia. Woo.
Because he was in
Okay.
P13, he was up in the P13, P10 range the whole race in Australia. And hopefully that Ferrari power unit can do something. Well, that's the want. That's the want. The actual Albon. I want Albon P10.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
do you want me to change it and just
Yeah,
put
change
Albon
it.
instead of
Change
Joe?
it.
Okay. I think that's probably a better prediction. I'm gonna try a strategy here. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but if I get it right, I will tell you. I'm going to go with Hülkenberg.
Oh. He's going to keep on his form. over spring break?
I'm gonna go Lukenberg. Biggest blunder. Who's 20th, Ian?
Vabo again.
So
I got to
gonna,
stick.
Who's going to crash out first?
Sargent. Who's going to crash out first, Sargent?
You quickly changed it.
Yeah.
So you go with Sargent?
Yeah.
I shouldn't have told you that. All right, I'm gonna copy you because I think he also crashes out first.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
I think that's the reality. I'm pretty sure most races at Baku we see a safety car, and that is probably the smartest decision. Fastest lap, Ian.
Fast slap, Charles.
All right, there's no way I'm voting for Charles. I'm gonna go with.
You're gonna vote for Charlie?
Charlie Leclerc. Oof. Is there any chance of somebody pitting before the race is over to put softs on their car and go for a fastest lap? That could be potentially faster than a Red Bull.
If you have a top team that's for some reason in P8 or P13, like if some shit goes down and they're not going to get the points, but they don't want somebody to get the points, that's when you do it. So that's how you got to bank on that one. In my opinion.
Is it fathomable that Max blows out Checo so much, but the Red Bulls are so far ahead that Checo can pit for free and take softs?
We haven't seen one of those in a while.
I think it's going to be Max dominant. I think Max is going to dominate. Honestly, do. Yeah, Max is going to get fastest lap. I'm not voting for a Ferrari.
Did you see the Instagram? The pill bottle with the macaroni?
No, tell me about it, please.
It's a pill bottle. Check it. Just check out the page ATO_USF1 for those of you who don't know. There's a pill bottle with macaroni in it.
Give it a follow.
And it's Italian antidepressants. That's the caption.
Oh my God.
I was like, Mike and all the Tifosi are going to be hammering these over the next couple days to forget about Australia. And you know who else is probably going to be doing that?
I'm already blocking it out of my memory.
George Russell is going to be taking some of those too. Because did you see him during the final red flag standing on the grid looking like a widow? He was in all black, wearing those black sunglasses. I wanted to just go up to him and say, hey, George, it's okay if you go home now. You can just leave. There's nothing. Why are you even here? Why are you even standing there?
I think there's some positives to take away for George Russell. You were leading a race. Like, nobody other than, like, I understand Lewis was in the lead for like a short period of time during the race as well, but you were freaking leading a race against a car being the Red Bull that is so much better than everybody else. So not only did you quali fantastic, you out-qualied 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton. It was a great qualifier. You led the race. You overtook Max Verstappen in the fastest car to lead the race. I think, George, you just got to take the good with the bad. You did phenomenal. It's no fault to your own. On to the next one, kid.
Unless you have anything further to discuss for this incredible race weekend, because I mean, dude, I could keep talking for hours and hours on this, but we do have a time limit. Is there anything you can think of right quick?
No, we got the predictions locked in for Baku. Yeah, definitely check out the Instagram, give it a follow. It's all our listeners. We upload the stream videos to YouTube. If you ever miss one, you want to watch them on there. Give us a subscribe over there, and we're trying to come up with some new and interesting content for you guys. I'm sure we'll be doing a podcast or two in between race weekend breaks. So yeah, Ian, I think we touched on a lot. It's definitely a lot to talk about with that race, but always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, Mike. And fans, do not worry. We are going to keep the Formula One content coming to you, even though Formula One isn't going to be racing until the end of April. This Thursday, I'm going to be doing an interview with a local sports writer. He's big into motorsport, and he's going to be bringing a closed wheel perception. I'll be bringing an open wheel perception, but we're going to combine those two to see where the similarities lie and why we both love motorsport in our respective areas. So stay tuned. That's going to get released on Friday, and that's going to be an ongoing event for you guys. Every Friday, we're going to be releasing interviews with fans, journalists, anyone who's involved in Formula One. Thank you all so much for listening. We're still going to be coming to you in your Monday episodes as well, because we're not going to stop. Even though the Formula One isn't racing, there's always something going on. There's always something to be talked about. Mike, I had a blast, brother.
Yeah, man. Definitely action-packed race. Lot to talk about, and always a pleasure to discuss our Formula One feelings.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. If you want more Formula One content, as Mike has been saying, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, ATO_USF1, and YouTube at the same handle. With that, I'm out. Dankeschön.
Later.
Merci. Gracias. Bye. Stop.